The State of Football, Part 88 edition here on December 2nd, 2020, counting you down to the 2021 NFL Draft. It's your new home for real football talk in the morning. Of course, RIC and the place to be, Ric Serritella, telling it like it is when it comes to the NFL Draft and everything football here, broadcasting live from the NFL Draft Bible studios here at the Jersey Shore. Of course, my co-host each and every day, John Murphy, down in New Orleans, VP of Personnel of the Toronto Argonauts, two-time Grey Cup champion, and we are here live weekdays, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 days a week. Don't forget Saturday, the NFL Draft Tailgate Show. Of course, all your college football game action is previewed there, and it's all brought to you by the NFLDraftBible.com. So check it out. Take advantage of our Cyber Week special, Familia 50. That will save you 50% off of the 2021 NFL Draft Bible. Baldy Breakdown Scouting Seminar, of course, Friday Night Scout School. We've got the Business of Football third seminar coming up this Friday with David Turner and Ryan Roberts. So good stuff there. And, of course, a very, very special announcement coming soon here at the NFLDraftBible.com. Hey, we've got a special guest lined up today. He is Anthony Becht, a former first-round pick. Of course, New York Jets pre- and post-game show. He's got a slew of podcasts now out, talking about the Jets, talking about the Tampa Bay Bucks, and his Spit and Fire podcast. So we'll have Coach Becht, who I've gotten to know over the last couple of years at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl as our tight ends coach. So we'll kind of pick his brain here on where the Jets go from here. Can Tampa Bay make a super run down the stretch? And we've got matinee football, John, the Steelers hosting the Ravens. Before we get into that one, a big shout out to our quarterback, Brian Lewerke, again, who we had out at the NFLPA Bowl, but more recently out in San Diego a couple weeks ago at the Hub football camp. Brian Lewerke trying out for the Houston Texans, and we saw Kelly Bryant was in about a month ago or so working out for the Texans. And now they bring in Lewerke. So Houston obviously looking to develop a quarterback there.
Yeah, and you've seen them kind of do that. They at the end of training camp, people thought they kind of had, settled their situation there, with that. And then they kind of went in a different direction. So I think it's, throughout the course of the year, they've been kind of trying, to look at different guys. Here's a perfect example of somebody who probably would have gotten, this opportunity much earlier. But without having gone out to the hub and providing, kind of just that updated film. It's not really about what you were doing out there. It's just them seeing that you're still the same exact guy, that they saw, last year, not being able to have that pro day and then not being able to have, all of the training camp and preseason. It's going to, kind of create a second opportunity at some point for a lot of these kids. But we've clearly seen, especially with the most recent version of the hub, that there's 4 or 5 kids that were out there that legitimately could get opportunities. And then there's 2 or 3 others that have had their opportunity and maybe can get back in the door.
Yeah, of course, Kai Nakua signing last week with the 49ers. They had a scout out there, so he got signed to the practice squad. The Bears had a couple scouts out there. They bring in Gregory Dortch, who, from my understanding, had a very good workout. Did not sign, but very good workout. So I do think Dortch will eventually wind up back in the league. Of course, Connor Davis, the big tight end, signing with the Jets, who we'll have to put on Coach Becht's radar. We'll see if he's familiar with Connor Davis there and what that tight end brings to the table. And so, here is Lewerke now getting a shot, and it's great to see, some of these guys getting an opportunity. To me, Shane Ray was another guy out there who deserves a look. Matt Elam, played really, really well. I went back and watched the defensive back drills yesterday, and his coverage skills were really, really impressive. And Denzel Rice was another guy who you say, hey, here's a guy with length, size, coverage ability, quick hips, nice change of direction, not going to kill you out there. And he's got about 20 NFL games under his belt. So there's some players there that can help NFL teams. There's some players that can develop into players, right? Matthew Wilkerson.
Yeah, I think
him.
the Denzel Rice thing, is coming off an injury, and again, this year, that's just the bad opportunity, with things. You were about to mention Matthew Wilkerson, who, when you're kind of going through the paperwork of, where, who, what, how, does he get somewhere? And, you see at different times the kid's got film playing D-line at Weber International at 285 plus, and he smiles when you say the plus, and now you see him at a totally different body type, playing tight end that he did at Edward Waters, down in Florida. So the versatility, is what I'm looking, and what you saw, and the factor that literally that kid's day started with the offensive group, and he was still working out with guys in the last group, right? And several times you heard them, trying to, convince him to take a 5-minute break, go get some more water, make sure you're, fully hydrated, and, and everything. Was every rep, perfect? No, but you really like the attitude and the approach of a kid who was like, hey, I'll rest the rest of the afternoon. Like I'll chill on the plane ride home tomorrow. He was out there for every rep. And then I also think something like the hub is important because I think you get a different vibe now from a kid like Shane Ray. You just get a different feeling, out of the personality, and kind of losing the opportunity to play has kind of refocused and re-energized, what kind of guy he is, with that. And then on the flip side, to see an Eric Swoop be so positive with all the young guys, and interact with them. And then I think the same with Matt Elam. A lot of Matt's issues in the NFL and the XFL and CFL have been Matt. Not Matt Elam the player, Matt Elam when he's making decisions and kind of saying and doing some things, that as a coach and as a staff, would normally very much worry you. There's a chance that his brother Abe, former Notre Dame, DB, who's, got a very good idea on things and, works in the business. Maybe there's a chance that, it took to 25, 28-year-old range for Matt Elam to fully, kind of realize the opportunities he's had, and now more importantly, have a positive future ahead of him.
Yeah, we're going to be profiling a few of these guys on the website, and, the Matt Elam interview, which I have not published yet, it blew me away to think this was the same guy, right? The immature guy that was making all these bad decisions. And say what you want, you don't have to take his word for it, but just the fact what's coming out of his mouth and the maturity that he showed to be able to say all the right things, do all the right things. And then you look around and he's coaching guys up. He's giving players DAP. He's really, his body language was real positive, and he brought the energy. And you saw that last play there with Dortch versus Elam, Coach Jeep Chris calling out two of the top performers to go mano-a-mano there at the end was really a fun way to close out the Hub football camp.
Well, and I jokingly said, for all to be completely 100% straight up honest, the last time I had seen Matt Elam prior to that day was cutting him. Right. So you don't know what you're going to encounter when you see a player, after that. And his whole thing was, it was me. He was like, man, you guys were doing everything you could to give me an opportunity. I just still was so caught up in myself. And hey, now I just want to kind of, play football and have this go a different way. And, I think when you have guys like that, you're never sure if the NFL will work again. But there is a place somewhere in professional football for a kid like that. And then hopefully what he can do in the next 5 or 10 years is really give back to the younger guys. That's what I told him. You want to really, kind of clean up your own slate to yourself, go back to your high school, go back to the University of Florida, go back and give to those younger guys and kind of lead them through the missteps, because they're very much going to respect a guy like him, for his pedigree, for what he's done, what his resume looks like. So now if you can get them to listen to the things that you've done that you're not so proud of, it takes a big dude, it takes a big guy to walk in front of a crowd and even do the interviews that he did with us and be so open and honest. So at least what we do know is there's no guarantees making the NFL, but he can have a positive contribution to whatever he is doing.
Yeah. Hey, Matt Elam, Shane Ray, some veteran guys there. Even Eric Swoop, what he brought to the table was pretty cool to see. We're going to welcome on our guest in just a minute as we get some technical difficulties. Anthony Becht going to join us here from the hotel room. Of course, on the road, it's always a adventure in the COVID Zoom life. So hopefully we'll pop him up. Of course, longtime NFL player, former first-round pick, and we'll get his pulse with the Jets and the Bucks and some things going on here. But we do have matinee football. What is it? 3:40 p.m. Eastern time kickoff, John. 12:40 on the West Coast. So if you're having lunch, you can pop on the Ravens and the Steelers, 6-4 at 10-0. Looks like it has the makings to be a lopsided game just due to, and I know the Ravens are getting healthier. I think they get 8 guys back or 7 guys back. So they're still down to a dozen guys being out for this matchup, including Lamar Jackson. So RG3 gets the start here. But hey, when the Steelers and Ravens match up, you can never, put it past them. It's going to be smash mouth football, rivalry game, and you never know. It could be competitive. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think we were just talking about Lewerke. This game could be a lot of Lewerked. This could go interesting. So they have another DB that's now out, was more of a backup special teamer, type Geno Stone, and I think 2 other assistant coaches that they decided to leave behind. But the Ravens have done the best they can. In this scenario, it is a very tough moment because your season, after seeing how these other games have kind of played out, there's now an abundance of teams in that 7-win category, including the Browns. The Browns can't play well against the Steelers or the Ravens, but everybody else, they're getting a check mark for. I think that's where the hard part for me in this is the Steelers still have their pass rushers, and now you're asking RG3 to go make plays, right? So the most interesting dynamic for me for this game is the Steelers are going to win, but how RG3 plays will kind of tell you, is this a Greg Roman, Lamar Jackson issue, or is this more a Lamar Jackson, Greg Roman issue? Because if you're calling similar style, because they are, and similar plays, and now all of a sudden RG3 is hooking up with Hollywood Brown, and RG3 is moving the tempo, so then it starts kind of sliding in the other direction, of what we've seen. Because we saw the other night, with Carson Wentz. And now here, is a game without Lamar Jackson. And if you're more than competitive with RG3 and he has a very productive game, that now starts sliding some of this off of the coaching and onto Lamar Jackson's, shoulders and legs. But I think that there's enough of the right guys still available for the Steelers. And when you're trotting out Ben Roethlisberger and your offensive line and the pass rush, I think it's just too many guys. And I don't think it's going to be as bad as what we saw Sunday in Denver, but I don't think the Steelers are going to have a lot to worry about here unless RG3 is suddenly showing back up as Robert Griffith III and makes a hell of a statement this afternoon.
It's been a while since we've seen RG3 kind of fling it around the field. I know he's had a couple spurts here filling in for Lamar, and usually it's just, hey, hand off Mark Ingram, hand off Gus Edwards. We'll see today if RG3 can get it going. We'll see if we can get our guest going today. We're excited to have him. He is NFL legend Anthony Becht, of course, a dozen years in the NFL, unbelievable 2000 first-round pick, and of course, now the pre- and post-game host for the New York Jets. He's got a slew of podcasts that we'll dive into. And, of course, I've gotten a chance to catch up with Coach over the last few years at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. So we welcome him into the show right now. Good morning, Coach. How you doing here today?
I'm doing well, guys. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My connection's a little choppy here at the hotel. Go figure. But there is snow outside, so I don't know if that's anything to do with it, but I appreciate you having me on.
Where are you visiting, Coach? Where's the snow at? All right, Coach's internet, maybe we're on a delay. Hopefully we can get the kinks worked out here. Anthony, can you work with our producer, Samantha, behind the scenes? Of course, hey, on the road, live show, baby. That's what we do here, the State of Football weekdays, 9 a.m. Eastern, bringing it to you live, bringing it to you raw, bringing it to you unfiltered. It's your new home for real football talk in the morning.
Well, pretty much status quo that somebody covering the Jets can't get a completion.
Yeah, right. Well, hey, hopefully we get Anthony back up there, but he's doing a lot of cool things now with Walking the Plank podcast and Becht's flight plan, and then a host of Spit and Fire with Dan Granca, who he hosts the Jets pre and post game show. He's also the NFL Legends Southeast coordinator, which I wanted to kind of pick his brain and see, what the NFL Legends community has got going on, because they're always doing interesting stuff at the Combine and the NFLPA Bowl, and always hanging out doing some cool things there. All right, well, going back to the Steelers-Ravens matchup until we get Anthony back here, John, we mentioned RG3. It's hard to believe, 2012, and it was RG3. And who was the big quarterback debate that year? RG3. And it was him and someone else at the top of that draft, 2012. Anyway, I mean, before that injury, RG3 was playing at such a high level. And that was back when Mike Shanahan was still the Washington football team head coach. And quite honestly, John, if you think about it, that's where the RPO really got a lot of momentum there with what Shanahan was doing with RG3. And that offense was quite honestly unstoppable. Before that knee injury, he was running the RPO as good as anybody. And I think it was a foreshadowing of what you're seeing in today's NFL landscape.
Yeah, and I think, he showed up there week 1 against the Saints, and, the talent was, undeniable with what they could do with him. And then, man, that injury, seemingly just kind of took it out of him physically initially, and then really broke him down. I think, from the mental and emotional standpoint of, when you're that exciting of a player and that was your go-to, and then all of a sudden it kind of falls apart. There just was not an immediate reboot, with him in terms of stylistically, how to mature, to play if you were going to come back off of that injury. Did they rush him? Did they do some things that maybe could have been done differently, for sure. But, here's the amazing thing. 2012 number 1 pick is Andrew Luck. He's no longer playing. Here's RG3 kind of still carrying the torch for that.
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah. And, oh, by the way, the Browns really lucked out in that draft, taking Brandon Whedon.
Wow. And to think, that was just 8 years ago. And yeah, Luck, that was the suck for Luck year. And then, RG3 came out like a cannon, right? Out of nowhere that year. It's like we tend to see every year with the quarterback, this year being Zach Wilson. And that was the big debate, because there was a question leading up to the draft at a certain point in time. Would they go Andrew Luck or would they go RG3? And how you'll appreciate this one. Number 3 overall, Trent Richardson. Justin Blackman, the 5th overall pick. Morris Claiborne, no longer in the league. He went 6th overall. That was also the Ryan Tannehill draft, number 8 selection. So, some interesting names to see, as we look back at that 2012 NFL draft. Brandon Whedon, 22nd to the Cleveland Browns. Funny to think about here, looking back at that. And then Brock Osweiler, the 57th overall selection by the Denver Broncos. They're still trying to figure out that quarterback situation. Let me ask you about Mr. Drew Lock, John. Do you think this is the long-term answer? He's playing with some busted up ribs, I believe. The media I see is kind of getting antsy there. And it seems like, these rookie quarterbacks where we used to give them 3 years to develop, now it's like, hey, if we don't see immediate results, your ass is out the door. Drew Lock, is he going to be the starter there in Denver next year?
Yeah, I kind of wonder where they go in terms of if you do another thing with the draft, it ends up being another similar type pick. Like you're going to have to spend a top 3 round pick on a guy, even if you see something in him to say like he could compete with, and if not, is there a veteran guy that you could go get that if he's not the guy next year, at least you're not forfeiting your whole season? And I think that'll be the interesting, off-season discussion there to see which way they go. If they go with a guy in free agency, I think you're going to see them give Locke, that opportunity, kind of like the Trubisky-Foles idea, give Locke the ball to begin. And if not, and you're playing good defense and you have the run game and you're then going to have a succession plan. If they go heavy in the draft again and say, we drafted all the, we got these veteran defensive guys, we double down on having the 2 pass rushers, then this year we've drafted a whole bunch of skill position guys, but we still don't have a quarterback. You're going to have to grade Drew Lock now and Drew Lock on what you projected him to be versus this class of quarterback, because, at their record, they're going to finish somewhere right between like 8 and 12, 14, 15, range. There's going to be 1 or 2 legitimate quarterbacks, when you mentioned one of them, the other one we've talked about a bunch, the Travis Wilson, Trey Lance, like that 3rd or 4th quarterback is going to be right in that wheelhouse of time of when they're up to pick. You're going to have to grade those guys, and unless unfortunately, that's a tough road to go down now, because you have seen a few things with him that give you the comeback against San Diego, the little bit of fire that he shows as a guy. There's some toughness there, but there's also a lot of turnovers and a lot of incomplete passes.
Man, 55.6% completion percentage. That's terrible.
Yeah, that's rough.
And to me, like, I thought down the stretch of last season as the flashes, I was like getting excited, and then he got the injury this year. But man, 55%, 7 touchdowns and 11 interceptions this year. Not a good looking stat line for Mr. Drew Lock. And I wonder too, kind of thinking about this scenario, because I know we disagreed when we had Ralph on the show. Like, I actually like the Saints' philosophy of finding out, is Taysom Hill worth our, we're paying him $16 million. Is he the guy we bring back next year? Because chances are, I don't think the Saints are going to be able to afford both Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. So I think they've got to make a decision which direction they go, because a team like the Broncos, they might overpay a guy like Jameis Winston just to have that insurance policy to back up a guy like Drew Lock. And I think, teams that do want to go the veteran route, either you can trade for Matt Ryan or trade for Matt Stafford, or you can sign a guy like Winston to an incentive type of deal. And let's not forget, Cam Newton is on a 1-year deal. At this stage of the game, I'm thinking Jameis Winston will get more money on the open market next offseason than Cam Newton at this point.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I mentioned is, when you look at who was on the schedule, and you had Atlanta, you had the Denver game, you have another Atlanta game, and at Philadelphia. Really just sort of manipulate or kind of maneuver your way through those games. And the one thing that you could have gotten is, Jameis could throw for 400, in one of these games. But if he turns the ball over, you had a chance that one of those games could have gone vastly different. Now, the Denver thing, that was not going to happen after what we knew. But there was a chance against Atlanta, and there is a chance against Philadelphia that on a bad day, if you're having an equally bad day to their bad day, that can happen. Now, do I expect when they play Atlanta the second time in a very short period of time without Drew Brees for there to be a different component to it, and then you could use Jameis, in a different way? Yes. When you're playing the Eagles, to me, it's the same thing. If you're playing the Eagles as they were represented the other night, you just want to play with Taysom Hill, run your 10 plays that you have for him, and get out of that game with a W, and you don't care what it looks like, right? 23-9, good. Let him throw a Hail Mary at the end of the game. Cool, we got a W. We're out. We're out, and we're not worried about it, because the weird thing is, and sometimes it's a foreshadowing of positive things to come, which would be good for my picks. But imagine that the Saints and the Bucs were right here together. The Saints beat the Bucs, and now the Bucs haven't won, and the Saints haven't lost since then, and the Saints are doing it without Drew Brees. So when you were in that moment, as the Bucs, you felt bad that you lost the game, but you thought, hey, the next month to 6 weeks without Drew Brees, we have a shot. And now you're at 7-5, and they're at 9-2, and your chances of winning the division have pretty much, vacated the building.
Let's talk about that NFC South situation with the Saints and the Bucs going on. Who better to do that than Anthony Becht, of course, host of Walking the Plank podcast, covering the Tampa Bay Bucs each and every week. He joins us here on the State of Football. The sun is coming up here at the Jersey Shore, Coach. I don't know where you are with all the snow, but hopefully we got you with the internet connection now.
Yeah, I've been working on it here. Hopefully you guys can hear me pretty good. It's good to be on the show. It is snowing. Well, it was snowing in Pittsburgh. There's snow on the ground, but the field was obviously covered, and the roads look pretty good. So it should be a decent matchup today. Hopefully, depending on who shows up for the Ravens in this rivalry game.
Right. Are you working the game today, Coach?
Yeah, so I'll be on the call with Kenny Albert for the Westwood One Sirius NFL Radio National Call. So excited to be out here. I got to do the Monday Night Football game between the Bucs and the Rams. Funny story there. I had a 2-hour notice on that game, and got the call, and I was like, yeah, man, I'll get over to the stadium. I got over there about 7:40 and jumped on the headsets, gave my keys to the game, and we're off and running. So got good reviews on the short notice, and here we are with another game to follow. Well, almost a little bit farther than the following week after.
Yeah, so how did that work? Because this game was supposed to be played last week. So were you out in Pittsburgh? Did you have to travel back and forth, or how did the logistics work out here?
Yeah, so when I came out Monday evening, the game was obviously scheduled for Tuesday at that time. When I landed, that's when they made the change for Wednesday at 3:40. So just an extra day in. Obviously won't be able to get out tonight, but we'll jump on a flight back home Thursday. But it's all good. I'm pretty open right now. Wasn't able to do my own podcast and things of that nature with the Spit and Fire podcast that we do every Monday and Thursday. But excited to do the game. Looking forward to seeing both teams.
Yeah, you've got all kinds of podcasts going on there. We'll get into that. But John mentioned you're joined by John Murphy, by the way, Ric Serritella, Anthony Becht here on the State of Football. John mentioned that Tampa Bay New Orleans Saints game. We saw the Bucs kind of put that game much closer on paper than it really was against the Chiefs. But you look around the NFC, and there's really no clear-cut winner here. I'm still feeling like if the dream team can kind of put it all together here, they've got all the pieces to work with, they can still maybe, make that run into the big dance. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, they got a pretty favorable schedule here at the end of the season. Vikings, Atlanta twice. Atlanta scares you a little bit because, they don't really have anything to fight for, but yet they have some scary players on their team, and Raheem Morris has done a pretty good job of getting those guys coming out here and finishing the season strong. Yeah, you're right. I mean, listen, if you put them up on paper with, the Chiefs or the the Rams or even the Steelers as far as weapons, receivers, backs in the backfield. They're as good as any team in the NFL. Right now, just the continuity between Brady and the offense and just the flow and really, BA's been talking about, it takes time. Let's be honest, guys, you got the best quarterback in football probably of all time. You're in week, you've got 12 games under your belt right now. This team should be clicking a little better. We talk about Pro Bowlers, receivers, elite guys. Godwin is as good as any receiver. Of course, Evans. You add Antonio Brown. What's been going on here is the fact that they just aren't meshing well. It doesn't look like Tom is comfortable within the system, and it doesn't look like the system has really evolved as far as, I don't know if it's creativity, but just when you watch when they play against the Rams and the Saints, you see the game plan, you see the scheme, even the Chiefs to match up and beat the defense, right? Well, I don't see those things with the Buccaneers. It's almost kind of like, they're kind of throwing out the plays and just kind of winging it, which I know they're not doing, but it's just not fluent. I see receivers getting open, making plays. No one's around them. There's a lot of contested things going on with the Bucs. It's never really clean. There are obviously plays and successful plays they've had with Gronk and crossing routes and over routes on play action, and but they just they really haven't utilized the backs well. It's been hit or miss. They still want to split a lot of time with Rojo and Fournette. And to me, I don't know if I buy into that. I think Rojo should be the bulk of the carries and the plays for the backs. LaShawn McCoy, this guy dresses every week. He's one of the top 10 receiving backs in NFL history. What's this guy?
Forget he's on the team.
Yeah,
he's even on the team.
Where is he? I mean, put him in. Throw him the ball. He's a back that Brady would enjoy. So they got their issues, Obviously, they got a little bit exposed early against the Chiefs, but they bounced back. They had a chance to win, guys, at the end of the day. So, we'll see what happens, but there's no doubt they have the talent to make the run. It's just, can they do anything once they get there? That'll be the question, especially now on the road. They're going to be going on the road, being that the Saints pretty much have wrapped up the division.
Yeah, we've got Anthony Becht here on the State of Football, of course, host of Walking the Plank podcast covering the Tampa Bay Bucs. Go ahead, John.
I thought when he said he got a last-minute call-up that he was dressing for the Ravens. They might need him out there this afternoon.
I don't know if I could do that, but you're right. They're down several tight ends, so it'll be interesting to see how they figure that all out.
Well, don't let them see you an hour and a half before the game, because you might be having to substitute again. When you're mentioning it, do you see what Arians likes to do and what Leftwich has been coached and seems to be where he's headed whenever he gets a full shot to run a gig is more of a vertical passing game. And then Brady, it's do you not know who you were signing? Did you not realize what you were doing? And to me, it seems like Brady was more there to be the distributor. He is who he is for his career. But who he is right now, it should be to be there as the distributor to all these guys, not that Tom Brady has to be the MVP of the league in order for you to win. And then they played the Saints, and you ran the ball 5 times. You come back the next week, and Jones goes for 208, or something crazy like that on the ground. And then you show up again last week in a matchup where you're not going to go gun for gun blazing with these guys, and you're giving them the ball you're punting on the routine in the first half. And some of your third down decisions, it just sort of seems like we're running this offense. Hey, Tom, get used to it.
Yeah, it's a good point. When Tom came here, there had to be some collaboration on, obviously. The smart collaboration would be they sit down and they blend, right? You mix in what obviously we've all seen Tom be good at. And of course, how can BA evolve those things and make the offense just more complete? It may be stubbornness, which I tend to lean on. That's what it is. They always talk about every week that Brady picks the plays that he's comfortable with, and maybe that's just the effect that he's picking the plays that these are the only options, so he's rolling with those plays. And listen, I would say a BA's offense, even though it can produce a ton of yards with quarterbacks in the past, it's a bit archaic. For offensive players just to line up and defenses to stand there and not be, worried about audibles, checks, guys moving in motion for the majority of the time. That's an advantage for the defense. I mean, throwing contested 50-50 balls down the field, it has nothing to do with Tom Brady's arm. It's just not high probability. You're right. You have the quick pass game. You have the screen game. You got several backs in the backfield that can make plays for you. It's just about blending it, calling it properly. And you talked about third down. I mean, listen, as bad as it looked in the first half for the Chiefs and all the yards, the offense in the first 4 series went 5 plays and then 3 and out 3 more times after that. I mean, that just, there's just too many good players. And they were third and manageable. There were 2 3rd and 3s. There was a 3rd and 2, a 3rd and 6. Those should be easy pickings for the players that you have offensively. And right now, you're getting deep balls. I mean, they 3rd and 3, they went deep to Antonio Brown off the field. A high pass over Mike Evans' head, incomplete. Antonio Brown's coming out of a little hairpin route to catch a ball and get a first down right in the vision of Brady. And then you have, 2 slant routes that, are converging by the 2 slot routes in the middle of the field, basically pulling defenders and just making it tight to make those throws. I mean, there's just a lot of other options out there. I'm not an offensive guru, but I've been in, the West Coast system. I've been in the digit system. I mean, there's plays that are manageable. I mean, just because you got these high-powered receivers doesn't mean you can't run the basics, the things that get you to move the chains. And I think that's all I want to see. And I think everybody else wants to see. Just if you move the chains versus the Chiefs, that's a pretty good defense versus them as well. And, giving them the ball back like they did just was brutal.
Anthony Becht joining us live on location for the Pittsburgh-Baltimore matchup today. Of course, host of Spit and Fire podcast here, talking Bucks football. Last one on the Bucks, and we'll shift gears to the Jets. It seems like the media is trying to wedge, this kind of division between Coach Arians and Tom Brady. Is there substance to that, or is that a media fabrication, do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I'm sure there's some, listen, as players, we've always been disgruntled with games, sometimes plans, how things go. In particular, the quarterbacks, they're the ones that run the show. And, sometimes you don't see the full-blown frustration from Brady, but you could tell there's he's aggravated. And it has to do half, with his play because he wants to complete balls and get things done on the field. But, there's also times when you're seeing Tom pat the ball and you're just like, what's the deal? How come it's not clean? I mean, the guy clearly isn't going to be fooled by coverages. I mean, it's not a visual thing. It's just, it's not meshing well. And, I don't know if there is a spike. I just think that, they're not on the same page. That relationship's probably quaint. It's fine. There's no issue there. But, I just think, BA and Leftwich and they all just need to sit down and self-scout and, look at tendencies and say, listen, go back and watch some film of some Patriot stuff. I don't know. I mean, it's not difficult for me, in my opinion. And then, as a play caller for Leftwich, listen, I've seen Gruden got a ton of weapons. You got Peyton with weapons. Chiefs, they understand how to call plays to deliver balls to multiple players, get guys in space, do different things, and mesh it up. Maybe Byron, right? Byron's not as good as it is, and I know all the calls go through BA, and he can, challenge things and make changes. But I think we've kind of overhyped Leftwich a little. Love him. He's a great player. He's done great things. Clearly has been a good coach. But to say that he's a head coach or something like that, I mean, listen, you got to understand, you got to go through your process and be good at what you're doing. And I just don't know right now. He's doing a great job calling plays, and BA says they're fine and the plays are there. I see different. The film doesn't show that. So whoever's fault it is, they just need to come together. Like you said, I mean, they have the pieces. It's just got to get better soon.
Yeah, and you wonder, the one thing I wonder is like all these coaches the Bucks have. They've got like more coaches than any team in the league. They got like twice as big a coaching staff. Like Clyde Christensen is over there. I'm sure he's got an influence. Then you've got Leftwich over there. He's got an influence. BA wants to have a say. I don't know.
Tom Moore. I mean, hell, he's been coaching for 70 years, for crying out loud.
I actually tend to agree. I heard Rex Ryan the other day. He was actually pretty critical of the way they're running this offense because if you remember, like when the Broncos brought in Peyton Manning and they had all those minds there, Kubiak and Adam Gase at the time and all these guys, but they let Peyton Manning do their thing. And, he made a good point because Peyton Manning actually has a little bit more of the outgoing personality to take charge. Like he'll, wave the punt team off like, no, I'm going for it and take charge and call plays at the line. I don't know why they're not. And supposedly Brady's calling the plays or picking the plays. I just don't know how much freedom he has, how many voices are in his head. He's learning a new offense. You've got guys like Byron Leftwich telling Tom Brady what to do. It's like, get out of here. All right, let's shift gears, though, because we only have Coach for so long. He's on assignment here joining us. And if you want to be in tune with the New York Jets, not many fans do, but if you do, Becht's Flight Plan is the best podcast on the planet for your New York Jets. Of course, a former first-round pick there. And, unfortunately, they're looking to make history on the wrong side of history. I guess we'll start it off with the elephant in the room. I mean, GM Joe Douglas, head coach Adam Gase, quarterback Sam Darnold. How many of these guys will be returning next season, do you think?
Yeah, listen, everybody's being evaluated, the last couple of weeks and really the whole entire season. I think that, Joe Douglas is going to be there. I think he had an outstanding draft. He's got the credentials to be a very good GM. He's been around some of the best in the business. And, to be quite honest with you, it's, he won the draft. I really think Mims is a really good player. Clearly, he's shown up and done what he can do when he's been healthy. Mccoy Becht, he might be the best tackle in the game here in the next 2, maybe even next year. So he's been a great pick. So it's just about building up the roster. And you're right. Listen, nobody wants to lose games. But you're in an area now where it is kind of where it is. You've had tremendous injuries to start the season. Adam Gase has been getting a ton of flack, and I think that the biggest thing is you wanted to see Sam work with his entire line and his complete receiving core during the time he was playing, and he finally got to do that last week. But he didn't have his right tackle. He had his third string right tackle. Now well, other teams don't have they're right. That's exactly right. But he missed 4 games. I think he'll be better the next couple weeks. And he'll improve as long as those guys are out there. I think, the weapons around them are good. Will he be there at the end of the season? Will Adam Gase be there at the end of the season? I mean, guys, if they lose, all their games, which, if you look at their schedule, it's not favorable for them to really win. They have the Patriots at the end of the season. That's probably the closest they've been that they should have won a game at home, that they'll be away on the last game of the season. And then, the Browns, who are playing well, but they are a team that, they play a lot of close games. But other than that, the Raiders, Seattle, these are difficult opponents. And, if that does happen, there are things on the table. If Trevor Lawrence, if you get the number 1 pick, I think everybody would agree Trevor Lawrence is the guy that, will go number 1. Do you clean house? Do you change the staff? I mean, usually, guys, that happens. We'll see. When Joe Douglas did his little State of the Union a couple weeks ago, he said that, everything, all the pieces, it's hard to evaluate. Well, it is. But, I think that, when you're going to make those kind of changes, you have the kind of salary cap room that you have. I mean, you could really flip this thing pretty quickly. A lot of one-year deals for several players on the team, which doesn't tie them in to these guys, and you're not going to be able to find a pass, all these different things in one offseason, but you're probably going to have to overpay a little bit for certain positions. You have to get those pieces in place, especially if, like you said, you have the number 1 pick and you have that option. Now, can Sam still be the guy? That's the big question. Even if he plays well, is it still hard if you have the number 1 pick with all the pressure in the media and all those things? Do you still say, you know what, we're going to make the Herschel Walker trade and go get all these pieces and build it up? I like that idea as well, but Sam's going to have to show more, and unfortunately, he's just in a bad spot. I mean, I feel like with the injuries and just the way it's gone and the regression, and then when you come back trying to play the way you want to play and make it look good right now, it's been tough. I mean, that's tough to ask a quarterback that's missed several games. So, we'll see what happens. I think everything's on the table, man, for the Jets. And, as much as I want to see them win a game, I cover the team. You're also very intrigued with the fact that, okay, yeah, it looks bad if you lose them all, but, you got some options there if you have that number one pick to go either way. So, it's a tough call for a GM. I know, Joe, that'll be not too many GMs in their second year are put in that position, but, he's going to have to make the best of it. And, I think either way they go, they can really help the football team and drastically turn it around the next season.
That will be a defining moment for Joe Douglas, right? Because that Trevor Lawrence scenario is interesting. And especially when you say, hey, I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking at it like, hey, Joe Flacco looked like the best quarterback I saw for the New York Jets this season. We got New York Jets legend Anthony Becht here with us on the State of Football, along with John Murphy, wrapping it up. Go ahead, John. One last one for Coach.
Yeah, I think, does it not tell you everything you need to know about Andrew Gase that he had to be basically scolded in front of the media to give the final honest answer last week after the game about who was calling the plays? I mean, you're the head coach of the team. Why are you putting yourself and the team, in that situation to be like, well, no, okay, well, maybe, all right, well, yeah, all right, yeah, it was me. It just, how do you ever think you're winning the room over when anybody's that watching that? It was just like, put it out of its misery. Like, you can't even imagine any other head coach in the NFL being put in a situation like that to literally say two different things in the same 10-minute conversation with the media, knowing that the truth was not what you initially said, right? Like, that to me is just where that, where we may not have answers to how to win the games, but we don't even have answers to how to answer the easiest questions, that are there, and I think that's the part, if you're the Jets, like, who are you, right? Like, I mean, you've been around, the city and the team, and there were seasons where it wasn't this bad, but that you knew who you were. Right? If you're the Jets, who are you?
Yeah, you're right. Listen, I don't know what the big deal is on, letting everybody know who the play caller is. I mean, listen, it's been a witch hunt for the media. I mean, you're not in, Appleton, Wisconsin, where, there's a couple beat writers and stuff. I mean, you may be able to trick them for, an extra week, but, you're talking about the New York media. I mean, and even the,
they had a guy camped out just on Dole Loggins, just making sure. They say he's not doing anything.
The cameras are on it during the telecast. I mean, it's just like, and then, listen, I don't know what the strategy there was for Coach. I mean, I don't really care who it is. Just, I mean, if it's, if it's Loggins, then say it. I mean, if it's you, it's you. I mean, either way, 3 points versus the Dolphins, maybe just nobody wants to take credit for that. But, look.
Yeah, did you realize this is the defining moment of the Jets season, that in 28 seconds of football, Jeremy Chin recovered and ran back 2 fumbles and outscored the Jets in 28 seconds while playing as a defensive player.
Yeah, it's tough.
How does that happen?
It's been frustrating offensively, and I'm not quite sure what it is. Loggins actually did a fairly decent job when I guess supposedly he was calling a play. So I don't know. I mean, look, I have no problem. I've never seen it where, Loggins calls it and then the coach calls it in. It's just a little strange, maybe it's just a little more control. I think a coach can still overrule things without actually doing that. But I don't know, guys. It's just a weird deal. It's hard to explain. I mean, just whoever's calling the plays, tell me. I mean, I don't care. I mean, it's just, either way, it hasn't been good, so it doesn't matter at this point. So just, put your name on it, man. I mean, it's just what it is. I mean, that's how I live my life. I mean, if I do something, you got to claim it. I mean, it's you. It is what it is. So
well, slowly but surely, they got him to admit. Was that you on first down? Well, no. second down. All right, third. Okay, yeah, it was all me. It just was so bad. It was so bad to look at it, and it was like little by little, the truth was like, all right, yeah, it was me.
And you think there's a conversation in the building, maybe like, listen, let's just get this out there. If you're calling, I mean, that's seems like the right thing to do, but he says there's a competitive advantage you want to get away, so maybe that's the case.
Well, they're hiding it very well. Whatever that competitive advantage the Jets have, they are hiding it extremely well.
Yeah, tough deal,
Coach,
for sure.
We appreciate you hopping on. Our guy Jesse Frittich in the chat room is actually a Wisconsin native, so he took the Appleton knock personally.
Hey, I love Appleton. It's a great spot. Did Anthony just knock Appleton? No, of course not. I love that town. I've been there. I played there. There's no better place to play. I got to resolve myself here. I love Lambeau Field, man. Hey, go Packers. Go Packers.
You never know what you get into when you join the state of football. But no, we appreciate you joining the show here, and especially being out on assignment for the game there for the Steelers and Ravens today. Of course, Walking the Plank podcast, Becht's Flight Plan, Spit and Fire with Dan Granca, and of course the NFL Legends coordinator there down in the Southeast. I wanted to try to touch base on that. You're doing so many great things, Coach. We appreciate the time here. Any parting shots? You're on Twitter, Anthony_Becht. Any parting shots or anything you want to impart upon our listening audience before you go?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. It's great to talk to you guys. Like you said, my Twitter basically is got all the links for everything that I'm doing right now. The Spit and Fire podcast with my buddy Dan Granca. Me and him do the pre and post game for the Jets every week, but he's also on Mad Dog Sports Radio. We talk gambling, we pick games. It's more of a national kind of situation, big stories. That's every Monday and Thursday live on all platforms at 10 a.m. And then we'll put those up on the podcast platforms as well. And then of course, the Walking the Plank and the Jets podcast, Becht's Flight Plan, they come out once or twice a week, depending on the situation. But it's a good deal, man. And just to hit the Legends coordinator, I've been working with the Players Trust with the NFLPA side, helping players convert and roll out into retirement and really kind of develop themselves on things they want to do. Guys got a ton of money, guys don't save their money. There's all different types of differences, but the one thing is we want to make it smooth. And I jumped over to the NFL Legends this year with my experience with the Players Trust. And, we do the same thing. There's 25 of us. We got some Gold Jacket guys, Orlando Pace, some really good guys scattered across the country. And, we just try to inform the players of benefits and different things that they have. And, being that I was able to bring my experience over from the trust, it just adds on. And it's good to be a part of something to help those players transition out of football, because, it is a tough deal. It was tough for me, just figuring out what you want to do. You've done the same thing since, high school, college, and the NFL. It's so regimented, even though you have investments and things going on, it's hard to, guys get out of the league and then all of a sudden, they put a schedule together and they find themselves done everything by 11 a.m. during the day. And it's like, all right, well, what's next? What do I do now? So it's just a way if guys want to, further their education, whether it's, graduating with their bachelor's or their master's or their PhD. We have funding that will pay for that. I mean, these guys can do whatever they want. We have brain and body and health and different services there. We have all kinds of things. I mean, I think in the past, a lot of the older players were a little disgruntled on what was out there for them. But now it's much different. Players have a unique opportunity to really take advantage of a lot of things to help them moving forward. And it's not just struggles, it's advancing. I mean, you're talking about developing connections with companies, Fortune 500 companies, expanding your business. So it's all aspects, and it's been a great part of my, transition as well. Just, going through my experiences and helping guys through their experiences and just seeing guys really succeed at the highest level. We see a lot of stories about guys that don't, save their money, but I'm telling you right now, there are some super, super, super successful stories of players that have played, 3, 4, 5 years in the league that you may not remember or know about, that are doing fantastic things right now. So, those are the stories we want to, send out there and bring out there, because there are, of this, what is it, 17,500 alumni out there. There's thousands and thousands of guys that are doing some really good things.
That's great stuff. Great stuff there. Well, hey, we appreciate the time. We kept you a little bit longer than anticipated here, but we could chop it up with you all day. That's Anthony Becht, NFL legend here on the State of Football. Coach, good to catch up. We'll chat soon, my man.
All right, hey, tonight, Baltimore Ravens, Steelers on the national radio call, myself and Kenny Alberts. Hopefully you guys enjoy that as well.
Oh yeah, we're gonna mute ESPN, turn up the Westwood One broadcast, and we'll be tuned in. So yeah, but buckle up and bundle up with the snow out there, Coach. We'll be listening.
We'll be closing those windows at the stadium for sure today.
Nice. All right, that's Anthony Becht, of course. Very, very well versed in everything he's doing on the media side, the Legends community. You heard great stuff out there for the game today. Any final thoughts from our conversation with Anthony Becht there, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see a couple of things there, which is, hey, you're already into, it's so difficult, in a regular NFL season to deal with kind of what the Bucs are talking about behind the scenes. You would think with all the things going on right now, but, in terms of COVID and the different rules and how teams are practicing and what they're doing, if you're at week 13 and you haven't figured out to just let Brady run the show, I can tell you something that's going to happen. There'll be somebody not there next year, and it probably won't be the guy selling all the jerseys. Just letting you know.
Yeah. Well,
just be careful, because, the one thing is if Tom doesn't get his way, in the sense of this season doesn't end up going as he wanted it to, it'll be a motivator for him to play the second year. It'll be the motivator for him to stick to it, and be down there, because Brady's not going to be the type to take, a W in the sense of, well, the Pats didn't make it as far as we did, or I made the playoffs and they didn't. They're not about
playoffs. No, he wants,
Yeah, this is about longevity, and one more time, one more layer, of this to say, who's going to come behind me and have that career and then go somewhere else, put that team on the map and win a Super Bowl with that team. Okay, now maybe I'm done, unless, what's the next thing, you could do? Challenge him to go win one with the Jets. Now you go get that done, Tom Brady, and stuff. You could definitely sell some merchandise in the tri-state area.
Yeah, well,
doing that. But I think, that's the part to me that stands out, that, it is what everybody is seeing, right? Like, in other words, it's hard to admit that it's not what it is when you have so many different layers of people seeing it, right? You watch the game from your perspective. I watch it from mine. You get to see Tampa, when they're playing the national games. I get to see more of them, down here. Becht is seeing it and covering it, and has a, relationship, with those. If everybody's seeing the same thing, what it is. It's just, well, like, hey, Arians is going to have his, ownership of the offense that's been his.
Too much ego.
Clearly an investment and a development in his offensive coordinator, and such. And he's got a lot of guys that, because of what kind of guy he is, he gets a job. Everybody gets a job, and all the cronies are there, working their jobs, but like, hey, in this scenario, it makes me wonder, has there ever been a conversation behind the scenes with Jason Light and Arians? At some point, now, to me, 12 games in is a little late. Is there any point in time here where the GM has to walk downstairs, maybe, knock on that door quietly, at 5:30 in the morning or 5:30 in the afternoon, or an Arian, and say, like, hey, we might need to, have a little philosophical conversation here, because no matter what, you are going to shoulder the blame if your name is not Tom Brady. right? Like if you set this whole thing up to bring Tom Brady down there and then you don't do what Tom Brady is good at, that fundamentally is not going to read well, when you're reviewing, what was for the 2020 season, and such. So I think you know what it is when you see that. And then, hey, if you want to see the Jets situation in the brightest light or in the most positive way possible, okay, give Joe Douglas, the draft, from last year, and then let's see where it goes, moving forward here. But it is going to be a very difficult thing to not just have to get like completely overwhelmed, right? You saw what did it cost, Goff, the Redskins got,
three first rounders.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be pretty overwhelming.
It would take a team's entire draft, right? It would take a Ricky Williams.
And I think the other thing is they're not a good enough team that if you made that trade, are you still not taking a quarterback somewhere? You know what I mean? So, like, does that not become the thing of, okay, hey, we took Heath Schuler in the first round and Gus Frerotte in the last round, and Gus Frerotte ends up being the better player, at training camp, and all of a sudden you're already, second guessing yourself, in that model. If you're the Jets and you make that trade, you are then saying that Darnold is your quarterback. Because you can't make that trade and then sit there at whatever pick you move back to and say, we took the fourth best quarterback in the draft because we got all this draft capital. It doesn't work that way.
It's going to be his defining moment, right? He'll be tied to that pick. And let's be honest, first he's got to get Gase out the door. Because if he doesn't budge from that stance, I still think there's a crack there that, Douglas could get the boot if he's adamant about keeping Adam Gase. They might just say, hey, you know what? Gase out of here, go fly south. But, one last point I'll make about the Bucs is it seemed like they were clicking right after that Green Bay blowout. Like everything was clicking. And then Brady did get his way. He brings in Antonio Brown. And you wonder, like, how much did that disrupt the flow of everything? Because now you've got all these talented guys that you've got to feed. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, the slot guy that emerged, Scotty Miller, O.J. Howard, Rob Gronkowski, Cameron. And now you see Brady, like when I watch him, he's almost like trying to force it to make sure, like, hey, we got to keep AB happy because we don't want him to blow a gasket. Make sure we get him a couple targets. You wonder how much that actually was counterproductive and disrupted the flow that they had, because they blew out the Packers, and then here comes AB, and you said, oh, man, here's a piece that puts them over the top. I think it's actually set them back, and I was thinking the same thing. Is Shady McCoy even on the team anymore? I mean, I thought, did they cut him? He's still on the team. Is he active? Like, I haven't seen Shady McCoy. Like, I thought the whole thing was him being a pass catcher out of the backfield, another weapon to throw to. I don't know what you're waiting for there, but Arians. I think Arians is going to wind up the one taking some heat here if it doesn't work. And you wonder too, like, is there another run after this? Really? Because like, I don't know. Does Gronk have another season after this? Does Antonio Brown have another season? Leonard Fournette, 1-year deal? It's going to be an entirely different team if Brady comes back, regardless. So we'll see. Very interesting stuff there with Anthony Becht. Again, somebody I had a chance to kind of get to know at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. And by the way, one heck of a coach. Yeah, we didn't dive into the Alliance League because I know he was a part of that dumpster fire. Probably something he wants to forget about. So I don't want to go down that road with him. But man, when he gets with the tight ends out in Pasadena at the NFLPA Bowl, man, what a great coach! What a great coach. So again, the former first-round pick joining us here. Just for the record, the game Steelers and Ravens today, where Becht will be doing the sidelines. I guess we're both going Steelers, right? You sure you don't want to take the Ravens there, John? You want to sound the sirens on the upset alert?
The upset alert will be that the game actually gets played.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, we'll be back at it again tomorrow. We got a great show lined up tomorrow, by the way. Jeff Benedict, who was supposed to join us today, will now join us tomorrow. He's got a new book out about the Patriots dynasty. We'll also have Dane Vandernat join us with the NFLPA Bowl update. Some guys that are kind of catching our attention. Some players who could potentially get invited to our virtual event. And then we'll have Neil Stratton of Inside the League, who always delivers the goods with the latest and greatest industry insider news. Of course, Football Friday with Big Law, Lawrence Johnson, 7 City Shop Talk. We'll see if we can pop up David Turner. I know they did the Mav Sports Take podcast last night with Turner in the boot over there in the ankle. We'll see if we can pop him on at some point. And, of course, Saturday morning, the NFL Draft Tailgate Show, brought to you by NFLDraftBible.com. Cyber Week, Familia 50. Take advantage of it. That promo is going to be running out soon. Parting shot for the people, John.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're happy that we at least get to have a Wednesday afternoon game. Not sure what we're going to completely get out of it, but if the COVID world has showed you anything, maybe I should have taken you up on that offer and gone Ravens. Maybe there is a 2012 RG3 sighting.
You can still do it.
Maybe there's an RG3 sighting, out there. Maybe the Steelers, get so aggravated by all this and come out there and make a couple of mistakes, and the Ravens are able to, key on it. And I mentioned this earlier in the year. Even though this game has a lot of overtones and different things going on, to realize that both of these two coaches have been in those two organizations for the amount of time they have. They're the first and second longest tenured guys. Currently, they're the first and number one and number two in wins in that period of time, and they're doing it in the same division. Right? That's an amazing accomplishment. So even though these two guys are tied to each other, and there's been no love loss, in a lot of years, between these teams, you would have to expect that, a future roundtable of John Harbaugh, and Mike Tomlin would have a lot of respect, with each other. And I don't expect the same sort of maybe pregame fireworks that were had between Harbaugh and Vrabel. Not quite sure that this relationship is, bubbling over, in that circumstance. So, like I said, my mind tells me that the Steelers, no matter how bad they show up, have this one. But it would be nice to see the Ravens show up. And, like I said, I might want to replay this and have gone back and given you a shot, here by taking the Ravens, because John Harbaugh, every once in a while, seems to be able to motivate his guys. I think he tried to do it against the Titans with that pregame deal.
Don't sit on the fence.
I want to see what he does.
To the Baltimore
I want
side.
to see what he does today, but I'm not willing to give you one back that easily.
You don't have to sit on the fence. You can go back.
I'll take the Jets. I'll take the Jets week 19 over the Patriots to give you one back.
Fair enough. Well, hey, it's been another hour of power. Again, big shout out to our guest today, Anthony Becht. For John Murphy, Ric Serritella. We'll catch you tomorrow, everybody.